Consciousness, the final frontier. These are the voyages into the universe between your ears. Our mission, to explore collective wisdom, seek out amazing secrets, and spread the message of personal potential.
You know, because it's my whole purpose is not to pump as many people through a program as I can. That doesn't serve anybody. I mean, well, some people would say that would serve your wallet, but that's not my motivation for this. My motivation is to help as many people as possible to live their best lives, which means that I'm going to, there has to be flexibility in how you're delivering the information. They say, I learned that in my 10 years of being a high school teacher, so it's not something that's foreign to me. I have many we all learn in different ways and different, paces, and it's just being open to meet your students wherever they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just, on a personal note, when I see those people who are always broadcasting how much they've gotten out of this last thing we just talked about, and I've just leveled up, ching, ching, ching. I discount everything they say because it's too, if you're that advanced, that quickly, that completely, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So I don't believe it.
No.
It's,
like I say,
and then you see them at the next one too, saying the same things.
Yeah, well, exactly. Change doesn't happen immediately. Like what I think we mentioned a few minutes ago is, it's taken you a couple or 3 or 4 decades to get where you are. It's going to take some time to undo that. I'm not saying it's going to take 3 or 4 decades again to undo that, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's not even going to happen within a week. It takes consistent and persistent action. Because I see when you're looking at retraining how your brain responds to something, you got some programs you need to override.
I think of it in terms of like layers of paint. Just really tiny, thin, little, whatever. You can't even see it when you're putting it on. But over time, it builds up, and pretty soon it's 3 feet thick.
Yeah.
And we've got to undo that. You don't undo that all at once. You've got to kind of go back and take it off layer by layer.
Yeah, if anyone's ever used those it's almost like a steaming machine, that will cause the paint to bubble up so you can scrape off each layer. That's kind of what you have to do.
Yeah.
I used to be like, Tim, I totally see your point. I used to be irritated by the type A's, always there will be like the leaders, the extroverts. And, and I kind of took it to be my challenge to really overcome my judgment here and listen to them actively and see what's behind this on steroids reaction. What are they actually saying, right? What are they actually saying? And then I'm like, I see how constructive what they're saying, right? And then I basically challenge them sometimes very constructively. Challenge them sometimes when they see that, oh my God, I'm being listened to and taken seriously. Next time they speak up, they become a little slower, and sometimes they don't even speak up anymore.
Yeah. Well, because I think a lot of times that behavior of always being the first one to say something.
Yes, it's a program. It's a thing that kicks in. You always need to have there's a need for approval. It's been there from the parents. You need to speak up. You need to be first. You have to win.
It's also self-preservation is a piece of that sometimes. And how do you intimidate? How do you keep people from coming at you in some way? You intimidate so that they don't want to challenge. And
so if you send them,
even if there's no reason, people do it.
Yeah.
If you send them back thinking with some really serious counter argument, right? And they go back reflecting on that, then they will think twice before coming up with the next one, because they know it's the same program that they don't want to be challenged.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the same program of self-preservation kicks in, and you're okay. Then.
Well, there could be, someone who's going to be watching this right now that goes, oh, I'm kind of that person, that
That's
always
fine.
has to be the first one. So, I would just encourage you going, why? What is that need that you have that you have to be first? There could be 12 billion answers to that, but it's, what is it for you? And I think once they realize why they do something, then it's a little easier to adjust it.
Right. So that's when you want to basically take down from the group setting. You see now, it's an interesting job you're having. I'm telling you, I could be doing this. So you're seeing all these characters, right? Role playing, right? And you see, okay, you kind of put them in the folder, compartmentalize them, right? Okay, this one is this one that. I've seen that. Okay, how do we do this? Then I think you almost want to take them and separate them and take them into like individual discussions and kind of deconstruct their sort of like conduct in the group setting.
Yes.
Together. Now it has to be a personal, right, session. Yeah.
That's actually a really good idea, like say at about the halfway mark, because you think about 3 weeks in, I'm starting to get a real good sense of who's doing what, that actually work in a private session for each person, and you can kind of touch base with them on something. This is what I'm seeing, how, and kind of go through the construction of that. So that's a really awesome idea, Gabby.
Yeah, how did you feel? How did you feel when this person said so and so, whatever? Did that make you feel insecure, or and you reacted this way? It was very curious, right?
I usually start off that call with, "What's wrong with you?
What were you thinking?
Why did you even open your mouth?"
Yeah, and then when they
but
come
there's
back,
also, sorry, go ahead, finish your.
No, when they come back, you see, then that whole issue of competition and performing and whatever, I think would go away from that.
Well, the reality is that the basic human need that we all want is just to be seen, or actually not so much seen, but to be understood and heard. If we know that somebody is actually hearing us and understanding what we're trying to communicate, a lot of that behavior would stop.
Yeah. But it's also such an ingrained habit for so many people. They don't even know they're doing it.
No.
They're not looking at how they act in public and, in social situations. They're completely unaware of, of what other people are going to be thinking about them.
I recently had a walk in the park. Sorry, Sheila, very quick. I went for around the lake, and I thought I usually kind of, look around, just really enjoy the environment and breathe, and it's a meditative experience, right? And I went with a friend who never ever stopped talking for a moment, and I was like, oh, that's great, that's a good point. And I kept listening and listening, and they just went from one thing to the next thing there wasn't a single, and it just and I saw them just really looking straight and just walking robotically, and I was like, wow, she's missing the whole thing here. I mean, this walk was, and then I'm thinking, should I be actively listening to this person, or should I kind of zoom out and kind of basically let them be in their bubble, but I thought it was disrespectful, so I thought, no, I'm here for a reason, and this person is talking, and I need to be listening actively here, right? That's my time. I'll have my private time separately. Yes. But, I have to be actively listening to this. And I did start actively listening, and then little by little, I started kind of sort of like stopping them. It's like, oh, have you seen this? And I was like, stopped for a moment. Did you hear those birds singing? And then we found the bird on the, sitting there. It was beautiful. And it took really 5 seconds. Oh, the bird, yes. We have them a lot in New York. And we just went on.
Yeah, but sometimes you need that, what they call the pattern interruptus.
Yeah.
Right? So if they get the talk, and you're like, oh, what was that? And it's like, what? Just to knock them off whatever train that they're on. and kind of get them onto a different track. But yeah, it sounds like that was a pretty well ingrained train.
Those people are, they're on autopilot. I was doing computer support in an insurance company office, and I got a call to go down to an office, and the woman she was the agent, and it was her office, and she just kind of sits there and looks through the paper and listens to everything else that's going on, and she thinks she's multitasking and doing 9 things at once. And so I came in and stood at the door, and the woman whose desk is right at the door starts telling me what was wrong with whatever the computer, and the agent from the back corner, "What should we do?" And she's turning the page, and I said, "Panic." What? And it worked really well.
Yeah.
And I just had fun with it because she's not going to say anything.
No.
But yeah.
But yeah, we just need to kind of throw that interruptus in there every once in a while. Because like you say, I don't think they're so on autopilot, they don't realize what they're doing. And you just kind of a very physical way. It's like putting a stick in their spokes of their bike just to kind of knock them off that for a little bit.
But they think that that's not a problem. They think that we are strange.
Yes.
We are the weirdos. We are the weirdos.
I'm getting used to that look.
Yeah, you got lost. You're some, what is bothering you? Why aren't you thinking my thoughts, and or any thoughts?
Well, and that's just, I've had, people who have kind of known me for really good long periods of time have seen the difference that's happened to me, where I was, that hamster wheel person. I was always go, 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 get out of my way, or you're going to get run over, either run beside me or, get squashed kind of thing. And now I'm kind of like, oh, look, squirrel. Go like, oh, let's go sit by the river. And they're like, who are you? But I've kind of, like you said, I've chosen now to build a life where I can experience everything. Like I say, instead of being so monotone, it's now Technicolor. I'm living life through all of my senses. I'm listening to those birds. I'm looking at the sunshine and watching the clouds and feeling the warmth of the breeze or whatever.
You're alive.
Yes,
alive.
Exactly. And it's amazing that we kind of have to remind people, that's what it means to be alive.
Yeah, alive. Yes.
Not to be in that robotic kind of monotone state. That's not alive. That's just barely surviving. I want to thrive.
I think what we're talking about is growth, right? Not just because I'm thinking as you guys are talking about this, and I'm thinking those people, when they're like the kind of person who's really focused on business, let's say, and they're just charging through and they're making money and they're achieving stuff, and they're getting a rush out of doing a lot of that stuff, and they're experiencing life in the way that they see life is supposed to be experienced. They're just not changing. They're not expanding their horizons and stuff like we're all sort of assuming is supposed to be happening. And so we kind of look at them and go, oh, poor them.
And they look at us and go, oh, poor you.
Exactly.
Well, and that's just it. Like, I'm not saying that the strive is the wrong way to do life. What I would say is, if in that striving that it's starting to have a negative effect on your health, on like either physical, mental, or emotional health, or your relationships are starting to suffer, then you need to take a look at it. But if you can still have that fast-paced striving and everything else stay healthy, then that's just the way you do life. But you have to look at your life in a more holistic way, and whatever you're doing in one part of your life has a ripple effect in all the other aspects. And if those other ones are getting negatively impacted, you need to take a look at stuff.
Yeah. To your point about, oh, look, squirrel, you said, or whatever, whenever you, you know what, not recently, for a couple, I'm not talking about any particular situation, but to me, the next realization was under the influence of Eckhart Tolle, actually, for us, right? It was, okay, when I see an amazing tree, for example, right? And it's just a beauty. It's just a blessing from nature, this tree. and I see it, and now so the vibration, this energy is going to me, and it's pleasing me, right, or whatever. Now you want to say in your mind, what a beautiful tree, or you want to even name it, name whatever that tree, maybe you happen to know what the name of that tree is, right? That's your mind, Eckhart is saying. That's your mind is coming in and labeling it.
Mm-hmm.
So Eckhart is saying, when your mind is coming in and labeling it, that basically interrupts your flow of energy from that. It just kind of grounds it. It's like, okay, done with that. Let's move on. The mind is like, I got it, acknowledged. Yes, it's a tree. We recognize it. We've seen trees before, and it looks like a tree.
Have them in New York.
Yeah, we're gonna put that in the box.
I even know what the name of that tree is. Good for you. You're very knowledgeable. Yeah. Move on, right? Yeah. So you want to say to your mind, don't even think about thinking that thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
So now you want to try to prolong that segment, this time, right, segment between you actually starting to receive that energy and your mind acknowledging it. That's been quite an exercise, a very challenging exercise. Because now
I think anyone who's ever done any sort of meditation is probably would think in that same thing. They're like, I can sit there for 10 seconds and not think a thought, and then all of a sudden there's all these thoughts, and you're off on the squirrel moment of thinking what you need to pick up for groceries and what you need to get your kids to whatever ball practice. But again, like you were saying, it takes a little bit of time. You do, maybe it is only 5 minutes you can do on one day. And then a couple of weeks later, you build up to 10, and you can keep building it up. Because again, it's training. And it's, I used to be the person that I literally could not sit still for probably 10 minutes at a time. And I thought meditation for me was torture. I was never going to figure out how to do it right. I was like, I can't perfect this. I can't make this work for me. But I was like, if I can go from that to last fall, I did a 10-day silence meditation where we sat in meditation for, 10 hours a day. Anybody can do it. And I survived. But it takes practice again. You're not going to be, I would not suggest that for anybody to do that right off the bat. Yeah. I don't care how good you are. That takes time to work up for that. But it's you can train your brain to shut it down.
Well, when they told me that you had to train, or there's, you have to watch, that kind of scared me a little bit, because I'm kind of like you. And then somewhere somebody said, people put too much, making it sound really difficult when it shouldn't be. It's really quite simple, and you don't have to be in a meditative setting. You could be doing anything actually and meditate at the same time.
Well, there's a walking meditation.
Yeah, walking, and so long as you're present, you're meditating, essentially.
Exactly.
Right? So then,
I would say don't do it when you're driving, though.
Yeah, driving is kind of, have you heard the story? This guy, the Tesla autopilot, recently ran into a fire truck.
Oh, no.
The guy was under influence, drunk completely, and the police stopped him, and they said, well, how could you be driving drunk? He said, I wasn't driving. The autopilot was driving, so I was perfectly fine, being drunk. Now the question is, should we give him a ticket or maybe arrest him on DUI? Because he wasn't driving, the autopilot was driving.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I don't think we're quite there for the self-driving cars yet.
It just kind of got me thinking. So does he have a valid defense, and he's going to get it?
I would say at this point, no, but eventually I think, like I say, I don't think we're that far away from, we now have self-parking cars. So I don't think we're too far away from the just getting in and punching in what address we want to go to, and it's going to take us there. I don't think I'd want to be in one of those cars, but it'll help for some.
The ones I've seen that have no steering wheel.
Yeah.
That kind of, I don't know. I don't know how quickly I'm getting in one of those.
There's a certain amount of control I don't want to give up.
Yeah. I don't want to see the day we have flying cars.
They're not going to ask you if you want to retain that control. Let me tell you, I've seen YouTube videos when two hackers demonstrated how they could hack into a car's computer, and they could totally steer it any way they want, even to a wall, and just done. You know, so yeah.
I've seen too many shows that do that already for the cars that we have now.
So what we were talking about was meditating while driving, right?
Yeah.
I would love meditating while driving. I gotta tell you.
But keep your eyes open is what I'm saying.
Well, no. You totally, your brain is there on the autopilot. Your brain is totally, it's subconscious, right? Do you ever actually think about driving? I sometimes completely zone out and was like, wow, I already got here.
Yeah, it's hypnotic for sure.
Yeah,
I still wouldn't recommend it.
I'm not sure that's meditation. I don't know.
There's a hypnosis that happens when you're, especially if you're doing like a long, like on a highway kind of thing. But no, I don't think it's just from the defensive driving standpoint, maybe not the best.
You're talking about seated driving, right? No, I mean like really cruising, you know, and just kind of. Really
I don't even like putting my car on cruise control. So.
Oh my God! You know this recent invention I don't know if it's recent, but I got to know this recently, right? When you basically set the distance between you and the car ahead of you, and you could regulate one car length, 2, 3, or 4, and it will just go. And at the same time, you could put the maximum speed, right? And we just go, there's a camera and there's a transmitter and receiver or whatever, and it just tracks the next vehicle.
You set that for 4 car lengths and you'd never get where you want to go because
I was so scared.
Exactly, right?
Look, I couldn't trust it, but I thought let's see if my car will come to a full stop. I was like very nervous, keeping my foot like ready to brake, and it totally got full stop. I was like, I still don't trust you, but okay.
All right, so
you're braver than me. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to stop this line of questioning, Your Honor, and let's go back a little bit towards what we're here for.
Yeah, we got a little directed there.
We did say we might run down a rabbit hole. So since we're probably not going to spend too much more time, I think, Sheila, what kind of, maybe what I want to ask is, in your work, what do you have? Is there something you're specializing in? Do you have a favorite client type? Do you have maybe a story you want to share for other than the friend that you talked about, but where you just saw somebody really get something special out of it?
Sure. Like, I find that, initially I didn't really, you kind of have the whole idea as I can coach anybody, kind of idea. But it just seems like the people that I keep attracting are those that are around the midlife standpoint. They're at the 40-ish point in time of their life, and they're kind of realizing, I'm not really liking the way life has been. And is this all there is? One of my other clients, he was, again, very, very high functioning, very successful businessman. And all of a sudden he went through a big life change where he left his job. And then he was like, now what do I do? I have no idea who I am without that. So we were going through the process of really rediscovering and connecting with who he actually was. What is it that you want out of life? What do you want out of your relationships? And kind of just going back and kind of almost reconstructing that foundation. And because he had found this through over some of the things that he's gone through, he was starting to lose his confidence in himself. Well, he had lost his confidence in himself. So that was, showing up with him trying to deal with his ex-wife and their child, and dealing with his trying to start a new business. It was really starting to show up in there. So we just would spend some time really working on that foundation, because that's kind of where I find that is where I like to, what's where I start with anyone is, who are you? Outside of all your roles that you play. Like if I was to ask you who you are, a lot of people, I'm a mother, I'm a father, work at a bank, and you start listing all these roles that you do. That doesn't tell me who you are. And so I really start getting them to reconnect with that side of them. And they're making some discoveries. Like we ended up making a discovery of how he was all of his women problems that he was having over the years actually stemmed back to when his father died when he was 12. It's like we end up making these really deep connections of, again, why you're doing what you're doing and how your brain is processing it. But until we start asking questions and really digging deep, we don't know. Now that we've made this realization, how he's approaching relationships with women is completely different. It's completely shifted in a different way for him, and he's having great success with that, especially with his relationship with his ex-wife, with, their dealings with their child. Everything is calmer. He's being more proactive in all of their conversations, and she's starting to open up more to him, and it's not so angry all the time, and it's just everyone is reaping the benefits.
What you said early on there about figuring out what he wants out of life. Mm-hmm. That's a huge question. And in my opinion, it's not something that anybody, I think, can truly be honest about and be able to tell you what it is they want out of life without a lot of introspection and a lot of, it's not something you couldn't sit down for an hour and go figure it out.
No.
It's
taken us months, like you say, to get to that point. And because a lot of times we get stuck in what I wanted out of life when I was 20. Yeah, well, what you wanted out of life when you're 20 is not the same thing that you want out of life when you're 40. It may not be what you wanted out of life the next day. We get stuck into this, like I say, we want to label it, as like what Gabby was saying, and put it in a certain box. And then we want to carry that box for the next few decades. Well, we change. We evolve as human beings. What I like now is nothing what I liked a few years ago.
Yeah, impermanence, that's one of the realizations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you're trying to get him to take all these layers off and to get to the truth, the question, who am I? The answer to that question is really like knowing about himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that to me would be the realization would be like, to me, it's like, I'm source.
Mm-hmm.
I'm creator, I'm the light. I'm here, I'm a being, and I don't need all these conditions, your definitions of who I am. Knowing yourself, I think, is surrendering here. Accepting yourself for whatever you are. This being on this planet who got deployed here to discover this amazing, amazing physical reality,
mm-hmm.
and make the best out of this. Just have a fantastic time on Earth, before you go back, right?
But coming up with that conclusion is so hard for so many people. Especially if you're like a type A personality, your brain just never has gone in that direction.
Well, no, that's just it. Like I put them through these are several different activities that we have done, to really start, like you say, chipping away at
Mm-hmm.
that layer after layer after layer. And, like you say, Gabby, how you've come to that conclusion now, that could take someone months, maybe even years, to get to that point. It's so, like I say, I don't want to sugarcoat it going, oh, you're just going to wake up tomorrow morning and you're just going to be like, I'm connected to the natural source of what this earth, and no,
Mm-hmm.
I hope you'll get there, but it's not going to be an overnight thing. But there's like I say, there's that layering process and it even like there when you have the time between the sessions, like I say, that gives your brain and your body the processing time. So you're not just doing an assignment for the sake of doing an assignment, kind of thing. You now sit with it. We discuss it. How did that feel? Where did that go? What did that bring up for you? And then that might take us down a different rabbit hole. Like I don't have a, you know, the 10-step process kind of thing that I put everybody through. It's individual. Like I'll start you off on the same path as everybody else, but then where we go from there, that's self-driven.
And all of those, you know, even if somebody never gets there, in quotes, whatever there is, right? The real lesson is that it's the stuff along the way that's where the real gold is. Right? It's the stuff that we're learning, it's the processes that we go through that make us think differently, that, you know, that's the stuff that makes you grow, and that's where it happens, and that's the stuff that you can appreciate.
Do you
Do
you believe, guys, that a person needs to go through pain and suffering to come to this realization, or there is another way?
No.
I mean, it seems like the world's way of getting there was through pain and suffering, right?
The reality is, it's more people than not that I have seen have had to go through something major before they'll start to have that realization. My wish for people is to don't wait for that point. But most people that I've talked to, they've all had that pivotal moment. And for the majority of people, it happens around midlife, where you kind of hit a crossroads, and some people will choose one way, some people will choose to ignore it. But so many, I wish I could count and give you actual stats, but so many people that I've either gone and listened to hear them speak and listen to their stories, or who I've interviewed, every single one has a pivotal moment that they've come to, and then that has allowed them to make that transformation.
So are we then, if you extrapolate that, as the world community, right, do we need to go through some really bad, terrible shit before we can wake up as the world? Sometimes that scares me.
It's two different questions, though. It's not do we need to, or it's do we need to, or is it possible not to?
I think it's definitely possible not to, but will we actually see the value in change if we haven't hit that wall? Some will, some won't. But you know, it's like, again, like I say, I would hope that we wouldn't have to. I mean, it's not saying that it can't happen, but more times than not, we are a very stubborn being. You know, I think of all the animals on this planet, we have to be the most stubborn, and sometimes we have to learn things the hard way.
Well, that's what programs do, right?
Yeah.
They make you do the same thing over and over and over again until it gets changed.
Is it Einstein that said that's the definition of insanity?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. Gabby, you got a last minute question? Or
I just want to conclude that point that, Sheila, you are the ambassador of that cause, I feel. That's why, and when Tim and we get together and we get to speak to people who do invest their energies into moving this thing forward, right? I personally feel that it's a privilege. Really, it is. And from there, I draw hope that somebody's got to do this. Somebody's going to be the spokesperson for the positivity, for being present, for reclaiming our true, purpose, our being, right? And maybe through that, we're going to start seeing change. And I think we are seeing changes.
Yes. I think we are in a very interesting time right now, just where technology is and our ability to gather information in the way that we can. Just in some of the conversations that I've had with people, we've all had this same idea that this is the time. This is the time when those of us who are really now trying to pass on that power, or the message of positivity, and just being able to, what I call the difference between happiness as an emotion and happiness as a lifestyle. They're two very different things, but people are now to the point that they're open to hear it. So it's where we go in the next decade or so, I think is going to be quite exciting. Doesn't mean that life and society as a whole is going to be easy. I think there's going to be some upheavals still yet to come. Yep. But it's how we're going to react to them is going to be the big tell.
That is so true. And you know what? I'm seeing that and I think you mentioned that before, it's the women who are leading in that cause. I'm seeing this. I think you guys are finally reclaiming that leading role, balancing this stupid masculine, I don't want to say stupid, masculine energy, the stubborn, this, this macho thing, this mojo thing, whatever, that creates wars and argues till death, whatever. And that also is an amazing experience, because Tim and I think we are seeing that. Look, I don't know, Tim, how that's happening, but we interview more women than men, don't you think?
Well, yes, but I think that's just a natural. I think this is work with emotions, and that's more it's more natural for women. They live in that world of emotion, and we have kind of been programmed not to live over there and instead go out and kill the bear or whatever.
Yeah,
and
go do.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not surprised that there's more women. I'm a little bit surprised that there are so many men.
Yeah, and there are. I've been interviewing more men lately that are, like I say, coming up on that side of things too. But like you said, Gabby, I agree. We have gone decades, maybe centuries, of having the world being run by a very masculine energy. That is a shift that I'm seeing, that feminine energy is starting to come up. My hope is that we get to a balance point, because you can't have a society that's all one or the other. There needs to be the balance of both for a harmonious society to create. So it's that dance back and forth. And I think we've gone from one extreme, and I really don't. I think we need to caution ourselves not to go too far to the other extreme, because we need that masculine energy, as you said, to get things done, because that's kind of the basis of masculine energy. But to have that balance of both.
That balance is the key thing, because that's society's program, to reuse the word, is that whole pendulum swing from one extreme to the other, and very rarely do we ever find a middle ground and something that's comfortable for both sides.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's interesting to watch.
And also, that's a very interesting point, that it's not necessarily that women are the only vibrators of feminine energy, right?
No, we all have them.
Yeah. So, we have quite a few crisis situations caused by women who, try to become masculine and try to, I like the Hillary Clinton example, who decided, but
let's not get all political here.
That will get me
we did
a
really
lot of
well
comments from the Hillary supporters. This guy is a Hillary Clinton hater.
Oh yeah, like I'm always telling people, don't get gender and the feminine masculine energies confused. They're two completely different things. Yeah. But one other thing I wanted to touch on, Tim, that you mentioned, and this is where, for whatever reason, all of my clients right now are men. And it's because I have that real soft spot for really working with men to reconnect them with their emotional side. Because as you said, we've gone through decades where men as a society have been told that you're not a man if you show emotion. Suck it up and grow a pair and all those wonderful little sayings that people say. Yep. But yet, women are then like, but we want a man who's sensitive to our feelings. But then when they are, we chastise them for being too much like women. Yeah. So men don't know if they're coming or going. They're thinking that they're doing something wrong. And I think that's something that we need to change, is to just allow both genders to be able to express themselves in whatever way that looks to be the most healthy. Because I think in doing that, a lot of when we look at the depression and anxiety rates are going to start to fall if we can realize that we can express ourselves without being judged.
Yeah. Well, that happens when people stop judging.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're judging beings, right? So that's part of the earthbound experience, and it's just learning how to
stay alive. Yeah.
Quell that a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, Sheila, this has been a lot of fun. But before we go, give us what you got. How do people get hold of you? What's big projects that you're doing or whatever, tell people how to find you.
Best way to find me is on the website at reigniteyourpurpose.com. My podcast is by the same name. You can subscribe there for weekly inspiration. All my social links are on the website. You definitely connect in there because you'll get different stuff on the social media than you will on the website. But if you go onto the website, I offering people a free ebook on the 5 steps to gratitude, because that was one thing for me, is really learning my gratitude practice. That was something that was quite transformative for me and helping me kind of reconnect and live life more fully. So I just go through 5 different practices that I have used. Use one, use them all, see what you think. But it's there for the grabbing for free, as well as if anyone just wants to have a chat. You got a 30-minute chat is open to anybody who feels that they could benefit in some way.
Great. All right. We will include links to that stuff in the show notes as well.
Definitely.
So, all right. We are going to let you go. Thank you again. This was a very quick hour plus.
Yes.
So
I appreciate being a part of this.
All right. Take care.
Thank
you so much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Best of luck to you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Tim Starr. Thanks for joining me and Gabi on the universe between your ears. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us for a little while. And we'd like to see you again. So be sure to subscribe wherever it is you're consuming the podcast from, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever the hell else is out there. We want to see you again. We also want to hear from you. So let us know what you think of each episode. Let us know if you got an idea for a future episode that you think would be just killer. Absolutely, let us know. All right? Thanks again, and we will see you next time around. Bye-bye.